right, y'all, let's go catch the sunrise. Don't worry, I didn't forget you. So you might be thinking to yourself, right, I thought this was about panoramas. Well, it is. But when you wake up for a sunrise, you gotta actually see the sunrise, right? Anyways, I'm headed up to the Ensign Peak Nature Park. I wanna show you something with panoramas that you can do to really get a view that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. But like I said, it's sunrise, so we can't miss it. You make it up like 2, 3, 4 minutes, however fast you are, you get that. I mean, for the bang for your buck on this hike is really rewarding. It is steep, it does get you out of breath a little bit, but man, it's like the views are just fantastic and you don't even have to hike that far. So from here you do get views of the Great Salt Lake and the airport and kind of the west side heading out towards way over there's the Bombville Salt Flats. But a little too far to walk. Ooh, the sun's peaking. Well, that was a decent little sunrise, but that's not what we're here to talk about, is it? We're here to talk about this impossible composition. So let me go ahead and show you guys the scene that I'm working with here, right? Got my camera, and I got these rocks in the foreground, and then I got Salt Lake City. Got some mountains over there, some mountains over there, and I really like this view. It's beautiful. Got some of that, you know, it's not really golden hour anymore, but some of that early day light going on. And I like what's going on, but the problem is that I want this rock and the city in the picture. And yet at 24 millimeters, which is what I'm shooting at to make that happen, there's really no detail left in the city. And so I want to zoom in to get more detail in the city and the buildings and the roads, all that different stuff. But then I don't have the rock in the foreground anymore. So albeit this is not the greatest composition of all time, but you know, it's the photo I'm trying to get, it's the scene that I'm trying to capture, and it's just not working. So instead I'm going to zoom in and take multiple pictures and then stitch them together in Lightroom to make a panorama that would give me a wide angle lens feeling, but still with a lot of detail in it, and you're not gonna have to compromise. So I'm gonna go ahead and set you guys down and take the photos, and then we'll head back and I'll show you guys how to do this in Lightroom, and hopefully this is something that you can do in the future. All right, you got a good view? I know you do because I made sure. All right, so in this case, I'm actually gonna zoom in all the way to 70 millimeters because we're that far away, right? All right, so the way that I'm gonna do this is I'm imagining my final product, right? The final scene that I'm hoping to capture. And then I'm actually gonna make it a little bit bigger to make sure I have a little bit of room to play with once I'm in the editing process. So I'm gonna start taking a picture. In this case, I'm gonna start at the top left quadrant of the scene that I'm imagining. It doesn't matter where you start. You can start anywhere. Just make sure that you start in one of the corners, or at least that's what I recommend. And then I'm gonna start slowly moving down and then move over and move up, move over, move down. You know, it doesn't really matter your process, but you're just covering the whole thing, right? And you wanna make sure that your pictures are always overlapping, because the more they overlap, the better that your editing software is going to do at actually stitching the photos together. So this is going to take a little bit, but we'll see how quickly we can do this. All right, so I'm about halfway through, and I think that one thing that you should know is that if you have a level on your camera, like actually on your screen, I would recommend turning it on, because it helps you kind of make sure that you're not starting to get kind of this weird deformed thing going on in your image, as well as turning on any grid lines that you might have, because once again, it just gives you more of a reference to make sure you're staying as on point as possible. All right, and all done. Oh, getting too old to squat like that for that long. All right, let's head back to the house, load the images into Lightroom, see if we can stitch them together and get a good composition. We'll see you there. And we're back. All right, so I went ahead and imported everything into Lightroom and rendered out the panoramas and all that good stuff, but let me quickly run you through how you would do this process yourself, because that's the whole point of this video, right? So let's dive into Lightroom and I'll show you what's up. All right, so we're in Lightroom, and I took a total of 26 images for this panorama, and I'll show you how it ended up turning out in a second. But you know, I shot it at 70 millimeters, as you can see up here by the histogram, kept that the same for each image. And you know, if I just start to scroll through each individual image, you can see that there's still tons of detail because it's using that entire 24 megapixel sensor, and it's getting those rocks and still getting great detail on the city down below. And so that's fantastic. You know, that was the whole goal of doing this, was to be able to accomplish that. And so whenever you end up stitching all of them together, this was the final result, which obviously you can see this is not what you want. And you can tell that obviously I missed a couple pictures down here in the bottom left because I didn't go far enough down. But this is kind of, you know, this was the point I was trying to make earlier, was that you want to go beyond the composition that you're actually trying to achieve at the end, so that you have some of this wiggle room. Because back in here, you can see that here it is with the auto crop feature that Lightroom has built in, and it looks pretty good. And you know, if I zoom in here, it's going to take a second, but the buildings and such are actually still really, there's so much detail in them, and it's really impressive. And if you're going to blow this up to print or something like that, it's going to look fantastic. And so, you know, this is a wide angle point of view, but with a ton of detail, and you don't have to have a wide angle lens. Now, it's not perfect, but it's still really good. And if you come back to the grid view here, though, you can see that now this image at a cropped, you know, ratio is almost 17,000 by 8,000 pixels. So it's a massive image, right? This isn't something to play around with. This isn't just, you know, some, you know, child's play thing. It's a big hefty image, and it's a DNG file, so it's not perfectly raw, but it's still going to give you a lot of that same capabilities. So it's really, really useful. And let me show you really quick how you would actually do this. You would start with the first image, and you would scroll until you got to the last image in the sequence. Now, one thing that you can do to help you make sure that you keep your sequence in order is if you actually put your hand in front of the camera and like take a photo, then take all the images that you want in your panorama, and then put your hand at the end and take another photo, and then that kind of, you know, when you're looking at the film strip, it gives you the starting and ending point is everything in between those photos. So just a little tip there that might help keep yourself a little bit more organized. But anyways, so you would right click anywhere on the strip. I always do it on the first one because that's my OCD, and you come up here to photo merge, and then you hit panorama. You wait for it to load. Now, it's going to take a second to actually give you a preview. Mine's already loaded because I did it, but anyways, let's go through this real quick. Up here at the top, you'll see that all 26 images were merged. Once again, this happens because I didn't jump too far in each image, right? I was able to only go down a little bit, so it gives Lightroom a ton of points to figure out where to stitch these images together. If for some reason it doesn't say that all the images are successfully merged. Try only doing a few of them. Try kind of to put a few of them together and see if you can find the image that's giving you a problem, or you might end up just with a smaller image overall. Now, I would recommend leaving it in perspective mode for this one because you're not trying to create kind of like a wrapped panorama. And then I would just go ahead and put auto crop, because that's going to take the image that the camera took, right, all the images together, and just make sure that the borders are all actually, you know, in the right spot. When you start doing boundary warp or fill edges, it's trying to kind of manipulate the photo, and it could end up making things look warped. Imagine that. And so that to me is kind of a last resort thing. I'd rather start here and try to make it more effective just using it, less changes, right? Try not to change as much. So for the sake of trying to give you another example, here we go. This was on a hike that I did the other day. This was actually 11 images, and this was the image coming out of the panorama stitching of Lightroom, right? Still kind of weird here on the right side, a little weird on the bottom. But then when you hit the auto crop, just make sure, right, it just brings it in a little bit better. And you know, I wouldn't have been able to get this image, you know, along this ridge line and then into the city without using this method. Now, as you can see here, it did make the buildings a little bit, you know, they look like they're falling a little sideways here. And there's a few ways that you can kind of manipulate that with the transform tool within Lightroom and different things to try to manipulate that. But as you can see from the overall image, it looks fine, right? You wouldn't really be able to tell from here that there's a problem. And then from here you can kind of edit it to your desire, and yeah, it's that simple. So I hope that helped you guys. I hope it gave you maybe a new idea, or you know, just helped you understand a little bit more about how this works. I want to be completely honest, using panoramas this way is still new to me. I only recently started doing it, and a lot of my first attempts did not go well, so I wanted to make this video to kind of give you guys some lessons learned. I was trying to be thorough, but I probably missed a few things, so if you have any questions or need any clarification, please feel free to reach out to me in the comments below, or on Instagram, or whatever your preferred method is, and I will definitely try to get you an answer or point you in the right direction or whatnot. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I would love a like if you liked it. I don't want to seem needy, but I would appreciate it. And you know, I would appreciate the subscribe as well. I'm just going to be honest, you know, putting a lot of work into these videos and trying to get better for you. No, that sounds a little weird, right? Anyways, like, subscribe, comment, share, do all the good things, and yeah, until the next one, see ya.